At this time, it's back. The podcast is here with Alex Horowitz. I'm Eric DeSobe, always talking interesting things related to talent and recruitment. And today we're talking a lot about AI. But Alex, where's AI? Do I have this right? You were a school principal for a while, right?
I was, yeah. Worked in K-12 for about 15 years, and a few of those years were as a principal and doing the school leadership thing. Yeah.
And how'd you pivot over to the AI world and what kind of things you're doing now?
Yeah. After working as just a school site leader, I transitioned into central office work, did a number of things, as a central office administrator with a couple charter networks. And then in the past few years, started consulting with charters and nonprofits on sort of all things strategy. And just as a one person consulting operation, I started just selfishly looking at AI for, to improve my own efficiency and outcomes. And then I just got addicted. And now I just think about AI all the time. And we'll be joining forces with AI for Equity here pretty soon, joining their team as their chief program officer. So we'll be thinking about AI full time.
And so, I've been on calls with you a bunch with AI for equity, but I actually don't think I really know the backstory. What is the short answer for how it came to be? And are y'all kind of the only people in the space when it comes to education and AI and thinking about all the things that go with it?
Yeah, I mean the super short backstory on AI for equity is the challenge we see in the world of education and AI right now is as AI continues to evolve certainly represents tremendous opportunity and also some risk. And if there is a mismatch between what AI presents and school systems readiness to implement AI really effectively, then the challenge might be that school systems are either missing out on the opportunity to use AI really strategically, or perhaps use AI in ways that are less helpful. So we really are dedicated to supporting our partners through providing resources and research and communities of practice that really help folks use AI in a way that's going to maximize results, and of course ultimately ensure that kids benefit and succeed. We are certainly not the only players in the space. There are a lot of folks out there who are working, in AI and education. I think there are some things we're doing that make us pretty unique, which I'm happy to go into, or keep talking about talent. I'll let you tell me where you want me to spend time here with what I share. But yeah, there are other players in the space, so I think we've carved out a pretty unique value.
So, if someone forced you to describe the state of how education is feeling about or responding to AI, what's your short answer to that?
Yeah, and gosh, Eric, I'd also be curious what your short answer is to that, because I see you very much as on the forefront. You are an innovator, and I see you very much on the forefront of a lot of stuff here with AI. I think there are a lot of people who are super excited about the technology. There are a lot of early adopters who are doing incredible things with AI, and in our own AI for Equity community, we're inspired every day by folks in our partner schools that are just doing really novel and innovative and creative work. On the other side of the spectrum, there are people who are worried about AI and scared of AI and see AI as a doomsday technology, who are perhaps shying away from it. And then of course I think the majority of folks are somewhere in the middle. I think the narrative has shifted on AI from I think people were pretty afraid of it a few years ago, and now I think much more so people are seeing the opportunity and trying to embrace the opportunity. And now it's really just a matter of overcoming the learning curve and diving in.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about the talent stuff when I see you on Zooms for my real job. What has kind of surprised you, or what have you learned the most about when it comes to like talent and recruitment things, as you've worked with so many different people in roles like mine that are recruiting or trying to hire teachers or trying to hire or simplify processes for talent?
Yeah, it's a great question. And with that, are you thinking more about, what's surprised me with AI specifically, or just more generally just in talent
Yeah,
work?
I guess with AI, because yeah, you're bringing obviously a lot of knowledge about how teachers get hired or how people get developed or how equitable processes hopefully are made when you're designing things that bring people into an org, since you worked in schools for so long. Has anything surprised you about how people have applied those concepts to AI, or had AI drive some new concepts for them?
Yeah. For one, I think there are, again, I'm going to compliment you again here, which is not why you invited me on your podcast, but I think there are just a lot of talent leaders who are talent leaders such as yourself who are embracing AI, both the frontier models, using like ChatGPT to, just streamline and make kind of everyday tasks more efficient, but also, looking into more specific platforms and tools for things like sourcing and onboarding. So I think it's been really cool and interesting to see the talent leaders that we interact with, how they've embraced the technology and have found really creative uses for the technology. And I think folks are in many ways further along than perhaps I anticipated when I first jumped on. I also think people are really open and honest about what they don't know. There's a lot of vulnerability around what are the implications of this technology? Am I using it the right way? So while people are adopting the tools and using the tools really strategically and thoughtfully, I think there's still a huge desire to continue to explore and question our own practices and iterate. I guess I'm not actually answering your question around what's surprised me and more just talking about what I've enjoyed and found impressive. But I think, before really focusing specifically on working with practitioners across the country who are using AI in their talent work streams, I just didn't know what to expect with where people are in their practice. So that's all just been enlightening.
Yeah, I guess the thing I'm thinking about most lately, and I brought this up a little bit with you before, is this idea of the AI arms race between candidates and then between talent side folks, right? Where I have at my disposal AI tools that allow me to do all sorts of resume screening in different ways or design cover letter readers in different ways. And the candidate at the same time can apply to 2,000 jobs in a day that they couldn't do before. And so how do you sort of think through which side is kind of more AI equipped at any given moment, or are they working against each other? Are they working in concert with each other and hopefully have the same goals of like, we want awesome people and you want to get an awesome job? How do you sort of think through this idea of the arms race on both sides of folks using AI at kind of rates of speed that are pretty excessive in some ways and might lead to some unintended consequences in other ways?
Yes, good question. I think as talent recruiters, talent professionals, we have to assume that people are using AI. And, it's funny because I think sometimes I hear people express frustration around that. Like, can I trust that this is somebody's authentic resume or cover letter, or just an authentic representation of who they are? Because what if they used AI? And there's some like fear around candidates using AI. And I think my response is, don't you want them using AI? Like, don't you want people who are up to speed with current technologies? And if we think about who we're hiring for in schools, teachers, administrators, don't you want people who are going to help support their students keep pace with and learn new technologies? And shouldn't people be using those technologies themselves to do that? So I think that's one thing that has been funny to me, is this fear around candidates using AI. Whereas I'm like, I want my candidates to be
Yeah,
using
you
AI
worried about
because
someone.
that tells me that they're keeping pace with what's happening. So that's just been, and I think it's kind of similar with teachers who are afraid of, are my kids cheating using AI? And of course, as a teacher, there are things you need to do to like make sure your kids are using AI really thoughtfully and strategically. But it's like, don't you want your kids? I mean, this is the future. This is the technology that people should be interacting with. So that's just been interesting there, with seeing some folks in the talent world who are really excited to use AI, but then also a bit fearful of candidates using AI. All of that said, I think there are still things that you are assessing candidates for where you perhaps don't want them to use AI because you do want to see what their thought process might look like absent of AI. And I think there are tactics and strategies that talent professionals need to use to account for that, like thinking through, are there tasks that you're providing people in person as opposed to pre-work, because those are tasks that maybe you don't want them using AI for whatever reason? Or do you set really specific norms with candidates around, we encourage you to use AI, but please cite when you do so that we can see your use of it there? So I do think there is, while I am excited that candidates are using AI, and I think talent professionals should embrace that, I think there are still practices people should put in place to think through, when that's appropriate and when maybe they wouldn't want folks using it.
Do you think there's anything fundamentally different about the conversation around AI than there might have been when graphing calculators were introduced or computers, laptops? This is the same conversation repeats itself at any sort of every other generation as something exciting and new, or you think there's truly something fundamentally different?
I certainly can't speak from experience there because I wasn't around when graphing calculators were
Yeah,
invented,
82.
or when the computer came out. But you do hear people talk a lot, Eric, about how, like, even with all the new innovations out there, like the challenges and dilemmas are things that are just on repeat from
Mm-hmm.
previous generations. So I think to some extent there's probably truth. I mean, you and I probably both as kids in schools had teachers stressing about, like, are you using your calculator on your math homework or not? And like, show your work was their solution to that. So I think there's always some element of what you're talking about. I do think AI is also such a game changer that the ethical considerations and dilemmas that come with it are perhaps on a bigger scale than what we've seen before. But then again, can't speak to personal experience there because I
Not that
haven't
old, yeah.
experienced any technological innovation quite to this extent until now.
What advice would you have for people in keeping up with the number of platforms or the number of companies putting out their own version of AI, and how you sort through or how you decide which one to use when? I'm always impressed that you and Aaron and your crew are keeping tabs on what's worthwhile, what's not. But what advice to the layperson who's not in that world for work do you give to have people sort out, should it be ChatGPT, should it be this, should it be that?
It's a great question and something that I think about a lot. I think I have a few answers. One being, talk to other people in your network, hear what tools they're using. You Eric, are introduced me to Fetcher as an example. And now Fetcher is something that I reference all of the time for those of you listening who aren't familiar. It's just an AI sourcing platform. There are a million AI sourcing platforms out there, and you're really good at what you do, and your recommendation for that tool meant a lot. So that then became something that we put in our toolbox. I think also just like don't underestimate, the Chat GPT, Gemini. There are so many tools out there that are hyper customized to one specific use case. Don't underestimate those tools that we all have probably seen and have some experience with. Just what you can do with a Chat GPT or a Gemini is pretty incredible. And then, for talent professionals specifically, I think, it's worth just starting with what's the ATS that you're currently using? What's the HRIS that you're currently using? What are the AI features that they have? Because I think a lot of the just companies that have been good at whatever it is that company does, looking toward their products and their own AI integrations is also just, I think, at the very least, a helpful starting point. But it is dizzying to keep up with because it seems like there are new products on the market every day. So I think the more you can talk to people who have used different platforms, try out some free demos yourself before making a tremendous financial commitment is the way to go. Or join a community like AI for Equity. Not to make the shameless plug here, but I guess I just did, where we are just doing a lot of that research for our partners and helping take that lift off of your plate.
Yeah. If folks want to find you or learn more about your work, what's the best way to do that?
Go to our website, AI for Equity. You'll find us right away, and you can reach out to us. We just excited to chat with anybody who wants to geek out on AI, especially school system leaders.
Yeah, love it. Alex, thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening. You can catch all past episodes. There's a few now. We're up to episode 10 and 11. Look at that. So posted all the places you get your podcasts. Make sure to check them out. Instagram. We're also on YouTube and Stunning 4K. Check us out there. And until next time, we'll catch you soon.